Have you ever seen someone so broken, yet so strong at the same time? Because in this moment, a young maid, her uniform soaked with tears, clutched the baby of the very woman who had humiliated her just hours earlier. And what she whispered next would silence the entire mansion. She looked down at the innocent child, her voice trembling, and said, "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry your mother will never know the truth about who really saved you." The room froze, gasps echoed, and the millionaire's face drained of all color. But how did we get here? Well, to understand this heartbreaking moment, we need to go back to the very beginning of a story filled with pride, cruelty, and one of the most powerful reversals of fate you'll ever hear. When Amina stepped through the towering gates of the Whitmore mansion, she already knew one thing. She was stepping into a world where people like her didn't belong. Dark-skinned, soft-spoken, and with calloused hands that told a story of endless struggle, Amina had only one goal: to earn enough money to send back home to her sick mother. But Mrs. Evelyn Whitmore, the millionaire's wife, made sure she never forgot her place. Every spilled drop of water, every wrinkle on the perfectly ironed sheets, every time baby Oliver cried for more than 5 seconds, Evelyn would lash out at Amina, sometimes in front of the staff, sometimes in front of guests. "You are just a maid," Evelyn sneered one morning. "Don't ever think this family will see you as anything more." The cruel words cut deep, but Amina stayed silent. Because what Evelyn never knew was that silence can hold more power than words. Baby Oliver was the only one who saw Amina differently. Whenever Evelyn shoved the baby into her arms and stormed out to attend her lavish parties, Oliver's tiny hands would cling to Amina's necklace. He would giggle at her songs, calm at her touch, and cry whenever Evelyn tried to take him back. And that infuriated Evelyn even more. One night, Evelyn returned earlier than usual. She found Oliver asleep peacefully in Amina's arms, his tiny head resting against the maid's chest. The sight was too much for Evelyn's pride to bear. "Put him down!" Evelyn snapped, her voice trembling with jealousy. "You are not his child. Don't you ever, ever hold him like that again." Amina lowered her eyes, but inside her heart broke, because all she had ever given that child was love. It was supposed to be an ordinary evening. Evelyn had left for yet another extravagant gala. The house was quiet. Baby Oliver lay in his crib, his soft breathing filling the room. But then a sound shattered the peace. The crackle of fire, the smell of smoke, and the scream of alarms. Within seconds, flames licked the hallways of the Whitmore mansion. The guards panicked, the chefs ran, the housemaids fled. Everyone except Amina, because Oliver's room was upstairs, and the fire was spreading fast. Her lungs burned, her eyes watered, but Amina forced her way through the smoke, coughing, choking, until she reached the crib. There he was, crying, terrified. She scooped him into her arms, shielding him against her chest, and just as the ceiling collapsed behind her, she stumbled down the stairs, clutching the millionaire's baby as if her very soul depended on it. When Evelyn returned and saw Amina covered in ash, clutching her child, instead of gratitude came venom. "What have you done?" Evelyn screamed, snatching Oliver away. "You probably started the fire just to look like a hero." The staff whispered. Some nodded in fear. Others stared in disbelief. Amina's lips trembled, but she said nothing. She simply lowered her head, tears mixing with soot. Because in that moment she realized, no matter what she had done, Evelyn would never see her more than a servant. But fate has a way of revealing what pride tries to bury. The very next morning, the fire inspector arrived, holding in his hands a thick report. He cleared his throat and announced in front of everyone, "The fire started in the east wing due to faulty wiring. Had this young woman not acted quickly, the child would not have survived."
The room went silent. All eyes turned to Amina, the same maid Evelyn had accused just hours ago, the same woman she had ridiculed for being nothing. And in that silence, baby Oliver reached out, not to Evelyn, but to Amina. His tiny arms stretched toward her, his cry breaking the stillness. "Mama!" Evelyn's face twisted in shock. Her grip on Oliver loosened as the staff gasped. And in that moment, Amina, the maid who had been treated like dirt, finally spoke. Her voice was calm, steady, and filled with a truth Evelyn never expected. Maybe the real danger in this house isn't the fire. The millionaire's jaw dropped. Evelyn's eyes widened in rage, and the staff leaned closer, desperate to hear what she would say next. But before Amina could continue, a man's voice cut through the tension, deep, authoritative. "That's enough. I think it's time everyone knew the truth about who Amina really is." And as the figure stepped forward from the shadows of the grand hallway, the entire household gasped. Who was he? What truth was he about to reveal? And why did Evelyn's face suddenly turn pale, as if she had just seen a ghost? What happens when pride collides with truth? When the one you underestimate turns out to hold the power to change everything? This story is only beginning, and trust me, the next chapter will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. So what do you think Evelyn deserves after everything she's done? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe.
The entire mansion froze, because standing in the shadows of that grand hallway was a man no one expected to see again. His tall frame commanded silence. His suit, though simple, carried a weight of authority that even the millionaire himself could not match. And when his voice cut through the still air, every eye turned. It's time everyone knew who Amina really is. Evelyn staggered back, clutching Oliver tighter, her face drained of color, her lips trembling. "No, it can't be you," she whispered. The staff glanced between them, confused. Who was this man, and why did Evelyn look as if she'd seen a ghost? He stepped forward slowly. His eyes, dark and piercing, landed not on Evelyn, but on Amina. And in that moment, the maid, the woman who had been ridiculed, insulted, and accused, fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Sir, I never wanted it to come to this," she whispered. The man looked around the room, his voice carrying a weight that silenced every whisper. "For too long, you've all treated her as less than human. But what you don't know is this: Amina is not who you think she is." The room gasped. She is not just a maid. She is the rightful heir to the very fortune this mansion was built on. Mouths dropped. Evelyn nearly collapsed, and the millionaire himself, Richard Whitmore, clenched his fists, his face twisting with fury. "Lies!" Richard thundered. "This girl is nothing, a servant. You dare speak such nonsense in my house?" But only the man smirked. "Your house? Richard, maybe you should tell them the truth. Or should I?" It turns out, years ago, before Richard Whitmore had built his empire, there was another family, a family whose business he crushed. That family was Amina's. Her father, a brilliant entrepreneur, had partnered with Richard, but greed twisted the deal. Documents were forged, lies were spread, and in the dead of night, Amina's family was stripped of everything. Her father died shortly after, her mother fell gravely ill, and Amina, once a child of privilege, was forced into servanthood, working just to survive. And the cruelest irony? She ended up working in the very mansion that was built on her family's stolen legacy.
Evelyn's face burned red with fury. "Do you expect us to believe this nonsense? She's nothing but a manipulator, a liar!" But before she could continue, the man held up a folder, thick, sealed. Inside this file is every document, every contract Richard forged, every signature stolen, proof that everything the Whitmores own rightfully belongs to Amina's bloodline. Gasps filled the air. Some staff covered their mouths in shock, others glanced at Evelyn with disgust. And in the middle of it all, Amina wept silently, baby Oliver still clutching at her necklace. Richard's voice cracked as he shouted, "Even if this is true, she'll never take it! Not while I'm alive!" But the man only smirked bitterly. "Richard, you may not have a choice. Lawyers are already waiting. The courts will decide, and when they do, everything you own will be stripped away. The empire you built on greed will crumble." Evelyn's scream pierced the room. She turned on Amina, her voice shaking with venom. "This is your doing. You think you can steal my life, my husband, my child?" But at that, Amina finally lifted her head. Her eyes no longer wet with helpless tears, but burning with a strength no one had ever seen before. "I don't want your husband. I don't want your lies. All I ever wanted was justice. And maybe now the world will finally see the truth." The mansion erupted into chaos. Some staff rushed to Amina's side, others stood frozen, afraid of what would come next. But just when it seemed the tables had turned completely, the man paused. His voice lowered. "Amina, there's something else you need to know. Something your father never told you." Her heart skipped. She turned to him, confusion flooding her face. "What do you mean?" He glanced at Richard, then at Evelyn, and with a grave look, he whispered, "The Whitmores are more connected to your past than you ever realized. In fact, the truth about who you really are will change everything." The room went dead silent. Evelyn's eyes darted nervously. Richard's face twitched with panic. And Amina? She clutched Oliver tighter, her breath shaking, because in that moment she realized the battle was far from over. What could this mysterious man mean? What secret about Amina's past is powerful enough to shake even the Whitmores to their core? Is she more than just an heir? More than just a maid? The answers are coming. But tell me, what do you think the Whitmores are hiding? Drop your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe.
The mansion was silent. Every servant, every guard, even the millionaire himself stood frozen, waiting for the man's next words. And when he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight so heavy it shook the very foundation of the Whitmore's empire. "Amina, the truth about who you are is far more powerful than you think." Amina's heart pounded. She clutched baby Oliver to her chest, fear and hope colliding inside her. The man looked directly at Richard Whitmore, who had gone pale, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. "Richard knows exactly what I mean, because years ago, before he stole your father's fortune, before he built this empire, he also stole something else." Gasps filled the air. Evelyn shook her head furiously. "No, don't you dare!" But it was too late. The man's words cut through the room like a blade. "Amina, Richard Whitmore is your father." The room erupted. Servants screamed. Guards exchanged shocked glances. And Amina stood paralyzed. Her lips trembled as tears poured down her face. No, that can't be true. But Richard's silence told the story. His fists clenched, his jaw locked. He couldn't deny it. Yes, the same man who had stolen her childhood, the same man who had mocked her struggle, the same man whose wife had humiliated her,
day after day, was her biological father. The cruelest irony of all. Evelyn screamed, "No, she's lying! This is impossible! Richard, tell them it's not true!" But Richard's voice cracked. "Evelyn, enough." He turned to Amina, his face haunted. "Your mother and I, before Evelyn, we were young, foolish. I made mistakes. But when she became pregnant, I abandoned her. I chose wealth, power, and Evelyn." The staff gasped. Evelyn staggered back, betrayal painted across her face. You betrayed me? With her mother?" But Richard didn't answer. He couldn't, because for the first time in his life, he was facing the cost of his sins. Amina wiped her tears. Her voice, though shaking, carried a strength that silenced the chaos. "All these years, I thought I was nothing. I thought I was just a maid. But the truth is, I am your blood, and the very empire you tried to bury me under belongs to me." The staff broke into murmurs. Some nodded, tears in their eyes. Others looked at Evelyn with disdain. Baby Oliver reached up, touching Amina's cheek, and in that moment, the innocence of a child confirmed what greed had tried to deny. Love recognizes love. The man stepped forward and handing Amina the folder. "With this evidence, and with the truth of your birthright, the courts will not only return what was stolen, but they will strip the Whitmores of everything." Richard lowered his head in shame. His shoulders sagged under the weight of a lifetime of deceit. But Evelyn? She was not ready to surrender. She lunged at Amina, her voice venomous. "You think you've won? You think you can take my husband, my child, my life? I will never let you!" But the guard stepped in, holding her back. And for the first time, Evelyn realized she was powerless. All eyes turned to Amina. This was her moment. She had the power to destroy the Whitmores completely, to take everything, to watch them suffer the way she had. But Amina closed her eyes, and when she opened them, her voice was steady. "I don't want revenge. I don't want to become what you made me believe I was. I want justice. The wealth, the fortune, the empire will go where it should have gone all along. To rebuild lives, to restore what was stolen, to honor my family's name." The staff broke into applause. Tears filled the eyes of those who had once looked down on her. And Evelyn? She collapsed to the floor, defeated. Just when it seemed the story had reached its end, a chilling laugh echoed from the doorway. Everyone turned. A tall figure stepped inside, dressed in black. His presence radiated danger, and his words froze Amina's heart. "Well, well, looks like the little maid finally knows who she is. But Amina, do you really think the Whitmores are your only enemies? Because Richard wasn't the only one who betrayed your family. The man who destroyed your mother's life is still out there." The room went cold. Richard stiffened, his eyes darting nervously, while Evelyn looked utterly confused. And Amina? She clutched Oliver tighter, her breath shaking, because in that moment she realized uncovering her father's identity was only the beginning. There were darker secrets waiting in the shadows, secrets that could shatter her more than the truth she had just learned. The underdog had risen. The maid had become the heir. Justice had been served, but a darker storm was waiting on the horizon. So tell me, what do you think the shadowy figure meant about Amina's mother? Drop your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe.
The man in black stepped further into the room. His voice was smooth, but laced with menace. "Richard may have abandoned Amina's mother, But he wasn't the one who ensured she could never rise again. That was someone else. Gasps filled the room. Evelyn clutched her pearls, her eyes darting nervously. Amina's voice trembled. "What do you mean? Who was it?" The man smirked, pointing a finger straight at Evelyn. "Her." The staff erupted in shock. Evelyn stumbled backward, her face draining of color. "No, he's lying. Don't listen to him." But the man's voice thundered through the hall. "Years ago, when Richard tried to leave Amina's mother behind, she fought for her rights. She tried to expose the truth. But Evelyn, you made sure her voice was silenced." Amina's knees buckled. What did you do?" The man revealed the truth. "Evelyn bribed officials. She spread lies, claiming your mother was unstable. She forced her out of the city, leaving her with nothing. And when she fell ill, Evelyn ensured no help reached her. That is why your mother suffered. That is why she died." Amina's sobs filled the hall. Her hands shook as she clutched Oliver to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Evelyn, desperate, lunged forward. "I did it for my family, for my son. Don't you understand? If Richard had gone back to her, I would have lost everything. I did what I had to do." But the staff, once loyal to Evelyn, now stared at her with disgust. One whispered, "She destroyed an innocent woman's life just to protect her vanity." For the first time, Richard spoke. His voice cracked, heavy with regret. "Evelyn, is it true?" Her silence said it all. Richard's face twisted in pain. "You didn't just destroy Amina's mother, you destroyed my soul. Because even when I abandoned her, a part of me still loved her, and you knew it." Evelyn screamed, her pride shattering. "Don't you dare blame me, Richard. You're just as guilty." But the mansion was no longer on her side. Her words fell flat. Amina raised her voice, cutting through the storm. "Enough." The room fell silent. Her tears were gone. Her voice was firm, and her gaze pierced through both Richard and Evelyn. "You took everything from my mother. You tried to take everything from me, but you failed. Because I am still here, and I will not be broken." The staff erupted in applause. Some wept openly. For the first time, the household saw not a maid, but a woman stepping fully into her rightful power. Richard bowed his head in shame. Evelyn sank to the floor, defeated and exposed. With trembling hands, Amina rocked Oliver gently. For years, she had been treated as nothing, humiliated, underestimated, broken down. But now, she stood as the living proof that truth always rises, no matter how long it is buried. Justice had been served. The underdog had triumphed, and the house that once saw her as invisible now bowed in respect. Sometimes life buries us under lies, cruelty, and injustice, but the truth has a way of breaking through even in the darkest of places. Amina's story reminds us that being underestimated is not weakness. Sometimes it is the very strength that brings down giants.